Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. I am Cassandra Pittman, formerly with admissions at LBS and also in INSEAD, and then did my MBA at Columbia Business School. But today I'm here to talk a little bit about LBS. And Michelle, can I have you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Michel Belden. I'm a former associate director at Wharton and now with Fortuna as a coach as well. And I'm excited to talk with all of you today.
As people start to trickle in, if we could just have put in the chat, we'd love to hear where you're calling in from. Michelle, I don't know where you are today, but I'm calling in from Italy, from warm, sunny Italy. Where are you today?
Fabulous. I'm in Los Angeles, California. Usually warm and sunny, a little cloudy this morning, bright and early, but it's so nice to be coming from you from, yes, Southern California.
Yeah, we'd love to hear who's here, and also, what schools you're looking at. As we go through this presentation today, we'd also love to hear your questions. So at any point, please feel free to drop those questions in the comments, and we will try to keep an eye on those and answer them as we go.
Sounds great.
Siddharth, hello and good evening. Where are you calling in from, or where are you typing in from, Siddharth? Let us know. Hello, Ayush. Hello from India. Hello,
Yes.
India.
Hello.
Probably hotter there than it is here.
Absolutely.
Hello. So Michelle, should we go ahead and just get started? Hello, Blake from LA,
Yes.
Los Angeles. Yeah, closer to my hometown. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Should we get started and then everyone can start sharing their questions again about Wharton and LBS?
Yeah, that would be great. So as we've already introduced ourselves, but my name is Cassandra Pittman again. I formerly worked in admissions for London Business School and INSEAD, and then did my MBA at Columbia and have been working with Fortuna as a coach, gosh, for what seems like a lifetime now. It must be at least, I don't know, 7-8 years, basically since Fortuna started or very soon after. Absolutely love this work. It's such a privilege to help people on this incredible transformational journey. Michelle, a little bit about you.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I mentioned I previously worked at Wharton. I actually attended Wharton as an undergrad, so I have deep ties to the University of Pennsylvania and the Wharton School. Also have been very fortunate to be with Fortuna since the beginning. I think, Cassandra, we're maybe coming up on 10 years even. So it's pretty crazy. Me too. And I've just loved the development of our team and the relationships that I have really built. And so I'm really excited, like I said, to share a little bit about Wharton and Cassandra about LBS today and to answer your questions as we are starting to come up on round one and the schools are releasing deadlines and their essays. So it's getting to the exciting time of the year for a new season to start.
Absolutely. Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about Fortuna?
Yeah, so like I said, I think it's almost been 10 years, and we really started as a team of the former gatekeepers, right? We have worked in the admissions office. We have that insider, point of view perspective, reading applications, interviewing, and that's how our team started small, and we definitely have grown to over 40 coaches and directors of our team, and really covering all the top business schools, both in the US and internationally, as we both represent. So really, the team and their key perspectives is really amazing. And we always say, if you're interested, please sign up for one of our free consultations. Go to our website, as well as you can find out more information there about our different packages and hourly work and all of our different coaches. And like I said, representing across the board, all the top business schools that you, assuming, are interested in applying to.
And we do have a couple of webinars. Michelle, did you want to a quick plug for these before we get into the nitty gritty of our questions?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're already interested in Wharton, but we really offer these amazing master classes, I have to say, and the upcoming ones for Stanford and Wharton are upcoming. And I think that's next week is Stanford on Wednesday, the 22nd, and then the following Wednesday is Wharton. Again, if you go to our website, you'll see who we're having on the panel. But again, the key people that have worked in those offices at those schools to really, again, present to you insider view of what are the schools looking for, how to approach the applications, and all the different parts of the application process. Please join us.
Great. So, Michelle, listen, what does Wharton want really? We know what they say they want, but what do they want really?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question. And I gotta say, and I think I've been saying the same thing, but it's true. And you can see from their essays that we'll get into later, but it is really to get to know you both professionally and personally. I mean, Wharton obviously is looking for top-notch candidates like everyone is, but they really are looking from professionals from different backgrounds professionally and educationally, your social background, your cultural background, because they're looking for individuals and they want to understand how you are going to contribute both in the classroom and outside the classroom. So your goal, again, through this application is to tell them about who you are. You know, who you are matters to them. And it's true. So again, you have the 2 essays to do that through, and we'll get into that. But it's also this, you know, what are you bringing and are going to contribute to your classmates? You know, again, it's student-run clubs. And the other aspect I'll mention is the international perspective. You know, can you show whatever kind of global exposure that you have had because of, you know, it's a very, very global, you know, student body and class. You know, they got over 50% women. You know, so they really are looking for what are you bringing in the global aspect and all these different pieces, and they're excited about that. So then the question is LBS, Cassandra. You know, what are they looking for? Is it different? Is it similar? Because again, I know this is what they say too. I'm telling you, it's the real thing, and that is what they are looking for as they want to get to know you through that application.
Yeah. So I think it is the same and it's different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a politician's answer, but stick with me here. So the first thing I'm going to say is that the LBS application is, I think, kind of the most deceptive of any school, and certainly the top 10, because you look at it and you think there's one essay. It's just about my career goals. What could they possibly want to know? But then you start to look at the application more in depth and you realize there's so many open-ended questions, what we call mini essays, that they are really looking to get a sense of what kinds of things you have dedicated your time to outside of work. What has your past academic success looked like? And is that an accurate predictor of how well you can succeed academically on the program? They want to see what kind of international experiences you've had, but more than that, they want to understand what those international experiences have meant to you and why it's important for you to get such an international MBA. I mean, LBS is one of the probably one of the top 3 most international MBA programs in the world. And then they are also going to want to know, of course, what are your career goals and how is the LBS MBA specifically and uniquely suited to help you meet those goals? So I think that, of course, they want to know you personally, they want to know you professionally, but I think that also gives you an overview of what they're looking for in the application process. And we have a question here I've seen from Aush. If somebody's looking for, you know, MBA finance or MBA with a specialty of finance, do you think a CFA is a mandatory highlight in the resume?
So a specific MBA, is that a specific program, Cassandra, do you think? Or is that the general with a concentration in finance?
Yeah, I think because neither Wharton or LBS have an MBA finance.
Right.
Let's answer that more generally as, you know, you wanted to specialize in finance. How important would that CFA highlight be for you?
I would say it's not, in the sense, it's not mandatory, like, you know, you're asking, in the sense of if that is something you do have, obviously that would be highlighted in your resume, but it is not a prerequisite. Right. So because it is the Masters of Business Administration is a bit different, because especially at Wharton with the different concentrations and the majors, right? Your first year, you actually is very flexible, so you can pick, what core classes you want to take given your background or given what you want to still learn. So my answer is it is not mandatory at all. I will say, I'm trying to think of just even past clients and when I work there, I mean, not many people necessarily have the CFA unless you are that is your profession right now, but it doesn't have to qualify you to go into the MBA with a focus in finance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you gave us a kind of a broad overview of what Wharton's looking for. How can you contribute to the program, and they want to know you personally and professionally. But everybody, or the vast majority of people who apply to Wharton, are exceptional candidates. They've done exceptional things in their career. They've done exceptional things outside of work. They love Wharton. They can talk about all the things that they contribute. So when you are in that pool of very exceptional candidates who all fit well and all understand the school and all have done exceptional things, how can you stand out in that pool?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we say it's tough, right? I mean, amazing people out there and candidates. So I will say one of the things is to get to know Wharton, because that is something that you do need to share in both of the essays, your understanding of the program, of the culture, and how that is the right fit for you. And I know, again, we say this about all the schools, but it is very true. And it's specifically about Wharton. They want you to convey your interest in their school and tie it specifically to, again, why am I pursuing the MBA? And specifically why Wharton is the best program for me. So I think that the ability to do that through your research and outreach is quite important, and that will help you stand out. As well as talking about things, like I said, with the culture it's the team orientation of Wharton, with the clusters, with, the cohorts, your learning team is you're working in teams in pretty much everything you do. So again, how do you excel in that area? Again, and showing that through different parts of the application. If it's the essays, letters of recommendation, they definitely can pop you up a notch, right? If you're in especially an oversubscribed bucket, right? If we're with consultants or bankers, and it's the sense of you can do your piece of the application and then having that, and we'll talk about recommenders, is that also supporting piece of how do you stand out compared to your peer group from this other perspective, right? From their perspective of your day in and day out, on the job role. So again, so what to stand out? It's a tough question. And I think but thinking about, I'll say the other part is, and I know we're going to go to the essays, and you talked about the goals, is an articulation of goals. I will definitely tell you, when I worked at Wharton, I'd be reading essays. The vagueness of goals would always throw me off, especially top-notch candidates. And it was just a bummer, because if nothing else, Wharton has so many things going on. My worry would be you would come in and not have a focus. They really want you to have this clarity of purpose. Therefore, what are your goals after business school long term, in order to enter the program with a sense of purpose and understanding of, wow, I think I'm really interested in, looking at data analytics or healthcare, right? And obviously, the amazing thing about business school is, it really provides all these new opportunities. But the fact that you have an understanding is important. So I think to stand out is that clarity of purpose, which is essay 1. And I know Cassandra talked about, the LBS essay. So maybe you want to talk about how to stand out. But I think, and one more thing, and then it's even to go a little bit further, it's like the why behind it, in the sense of connecting what you've been doing to what you want to do, helps you, again, that clarity of purpose, to help them understand, oh, like Michelle is really focused and excited and passionate, and her determination to make an impact in this space, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think, Cassandra, about LBS?
Yeah, well, I want to build on that last point that you made. So one of the things that I ask all of my clients to do when we first start working together is go back and Google Simon Sinek's very first TED Talk on Start With Why. And it's like 15 years old at this point, maybe even older. The AV on it's really bad. He wasn't famous then. And I really like to anchor the starting of our work in not just what you want to do, but why you want to do it, and whose life is going to be different, is going to be better if you succeed. Because a lot of people have not the same, but similar goals An MBA is an MBA, right? And people do it to do, a handful of things, maybe a dozen things, but mostly that, there's a lot of similarities there. And if you can tell a good story and you can take the admissions committee or whoever it is that's reading that application on a journey and get them invested in your success and get them to say, oh God, if Michelle is successful in her goals, wow, that's really going to make a difference. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to be wanting to work for UNICEF. It can be in product design. It can be, it can be lots of different things. It's that really, I think, helps bring color in a sea of a lot of the same color, if that makes sense. And I think that's true no matter what school you're applying to, whether it be LBS or Wharton or indeed another school. I think that is true no matter what.
I 100% agree. And I think that also goes with I always say, be as genuine and authentic, because again, they're not looking for the right answer. They're looking for your story, which goes right to that. And that's how you connect with the reader. So I think it's this connection, like, how do I stand out? And it goes to what just Cassandra said. It's that connection of what you are so determined and looking forward to hopefully making this impact with, right? So I think that's wonderful. And someone asked, Cassandra, if you can repeat that, what was the TED Talk called?
Sure. It's called Start with Why, and the speaker / author is Simon Sinek. So yeah, I highly recommend. How much, this is another question from our audience, how much do you think previous work experience and internships matter?
Maybe not so much internships in the sense of most likely you're 2+ years out of school. So they will focus more on your full-time work experience, but it absolutely matters. Because again, what it is, okay, what skill set, what transferable skills, knowledge have you built to this point in your career professionally? Again, that will be beneficial to your classmates. What perspective are you bringing to the classroom? Does that make sense? So again, and so there's no right answer, because again, we're in a class of 800+. They need a mix. That's the whole point. So again, what are you bringing? What perspective, background? And that is absolutely something, again, to help you stand out. But again, what did you go above and beyond in that role? Were you given, additional responsibilities? Were you given this task that was, again, it's on the resume, you can describe it, you can describe it in an essay, so therefore your professional experience is absolutely important. And it's not the name of the company. I know a lot of people worry, it's a brand name company, but it's more of what opportunities have you had within the roles. Have you had growth, depending on how long you've been there? Have you gotten some touch in some, leadership managerial role? A lot of people haven't, and that's still okay, depending on how long you've been working. So I'll stop there, but I think it absolutely is a focus of the process.
And I think, Michel, just to state, maybe something that seems obvious to us because we do this every day, all day, but may not be obvious to some people, is that in neither one of these programs is a pre-experience program. So they're both going to be expecting usually at least a couple, at least two, and then above there usually of postgraduate work experience. So not summer internships when you were at university or in college, but postgraduate work experience. There was a question before about the overlap between the MIM at LBS and the MBA, and one of the places they diverge is that a MIM is often, not always, but often a pre-experience or a very low experience. You might have had just a couple of internships or 1 year work experience, whereas an MBA, they do really want you to come to bring that richness of experience to the classroom. So Michel, you've done that. You've done your 2-3 years work experience. You've watched Start with Why. You understand your goals. You've done the school research. When do you need to apply? Do you absolutely need to apply in round one?
Absolutely not. For Wharton, I'm going to say no. What would be your answer for LBS?
No, but I would say that it is not true that all rounds are equal. So
I would agree with that.
LBS used to have 4 rounds. They recently, a couple of years ago, dropped their 4th round. It had gotten to, honestly, round 4 was like a joke at some point. It was like, I don't know, maybe they were accepting 2-3 people. I don't know what they're, I don't know. I don't want them to sue me for saying something that's not correct, but that's what it felt like, that they really weren't accepting anybody from that round. And I would say that particularly as you get to that 3rd round for LBS, if you've got something in your profile that's a little bit of a weakness that you need to overcome, or you're from an overrepresented profile that's, overrepresented nationality, overrepresented work experience, the schools can only accept so many French engineers, right? I mean, there's just, they want diversity in the class. And so you have to look at that. And the more those things are a factor in your profile, the more you're going to want to apply earlier is my best advice.
I would agree. And I also will say, especially everyone joining us, clearly you are thinking about it. If it's not this year, maybe it's next year. And I love that planning, right? Therefore, it absolutely is to your advantage to, especially the ones that are the top on your list, to apply round one. I mean, my other thing that I always say, which I'm sure you all hear, is apply when you're ready, in the sense of your application is going to be the strongest. And I'll say the one piece of that is the test score. So for everybody listening, get that out of the way. Give yourself enough time to study, if it's the GRE or GMAT, whichever one, in order to get the score that you feel best represents, your abilities. In the sense of, once you can get that done, check and push it to the side, then you can just focus on the application. And to try to handle both, it's very stressful, etc. So therefore, sometimes I do have clients that will push to the round two because of that component. The only other reason I would say for some people, again, just given my experience, to push to like a second round, and this is all very individual, is some kind of something at work that is quite impactful. If it's a promotion, if it's a project ending, that you feel like, again, would add a lot of value, you would maybe want to push to a round two. But I go back to Cassandra, I agree, all rounds aren't necessarily equal. So therefore, again, if you're, planning and looking forward to, a business school is going to fit into your plan, you should definitely have the approach of, I want to apply round one to my top choices, putting my best foot forward.
Yeah, I think there's another important element to this, which is, there are some coaches and some admissions coaches will basically only work with clients that they know will get in, and only work with clients to schools they know they can get them in. And I take a different approach. I think that, our role is to try to make those long shots happen, right? And so I think it's the best strategy is to reach as far as you possibly can and want to in that first round, and then save your surer bets for the second and third round. And if you can do that, then it makes that second round, if you do need to go to those safety schools, it's just a lot less stressful, right? Because you should reach beyond what you think you can achieve. You can't get a yes if you don't apply.
Oh my gosh, we're definitely aligned. I would say probably, I feel like most Fortuna coaches probably are. And I'm absolutely, that's my approach. And I don't want you to look back and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. This is your opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of my clients do work on the Harvard, Stanford, Wharton with me, which are reach schools. And again, if we have a round one strategy, and you can have that round two strategy, like Cassandra just said, that it's putting you in the best position. Because again, if your goal is to attend business school next fall, I want to help you do that, right? So
yeah,
I absolutely
and thank
agree.
you for that clarification, Michelle. I should say that is not Fortuna's approach. We don't hand select our clients; we help them reach. But I have heard through the grapevine, we won't name names, that there might be some other firms that have a different approach. There is another, just before we move on from this topic, there's a question from the audience here from Blake, who's asking about the difference between round one and round two and scholarship opportunities at Wharton.
Okay. Great. They definitely, they don't put forward what all the scholarships are, but I do know that you are considered for scholarships in both rounds, right? And they're obviously the need-based, but the merit-based scholarships. And I would say at this point, just given I have been away for a while, I always tell my clients, if you have really a specific question, if there's a specific category, you can reach out to the admissions and financial aid office and ask them, but they absolutely award scholarships both in round one and round two. And like LBS, Wharton does have a round three still. I don't work with a lot of clients on round three. It's basically what holes maybe do they need to fill. So it's competitive, and it's just not a great approach. So therefore, again, they are giving that money and merit scholarships out in both the first two rounds. But I think I would push you just to reach out to them if you want specific answers on how they approach that, and if there are any advantages, to round one versus round two.
Yeah, I would also say that for LBS, Blake, I wasn't sure if you were asking about both schools, but also for the rest of the audience. There are two different types of scholarships at LBS. There's the ones that you apply for, and then there's something we call spot scholarships. So that's somebody that they would think is really competitive, and they frankly they want to give you an incentive to choose LBS. They think you might be getting offers elsewhere, and when that pool of money is gone, because it's all been allocated, it's gone, right? So they can and do give spot scholarships all the way through all 3 rounds, but frankly, you've got more money to play with in round 1 than you do in round 2 or round 3. Blake has another question here, maybe a little bit of myth busting for you, Michel.
Okay, excellent.
So Blake says, I've been told the Wharton MBA is all about taking a Goldman associate and grooming them into an MD. If you don't come from a big bank or a consulting firm, or have a super high GMAT, there's not much chance. Would that be accurate?
It would not be accurate. It would be really boring to have a class of like 800, there's not gonna be 800, but a lot of Goldman associates, right? Or just bankers, let's say from those big name companies. Again, it's about diversity. So I would say, and there's a lot of myths, I'm sure, about LBS as well, right? I mean, when I worked at Wharton and when I was an undergrad, it's all about finance. And it's like, oh my goodness, especially at this point, how many years later, Erica James, the new dean of a couple years now, and Tangan Hall Entrepreneurship Venture Lab, so many things. So I would say, try to stay away. I know you all go to the birds and listen to a lot of things. There are a lot of myths out there. So yes, they are going to have bankers from Goldman. They're not looking to groom them. I think, that's not Wharton's goal, right? So, but I think there's obviously those, students there, and those are their, goals, and absolutely they're going to, help them achieve their goals. But it is a huge mix. And I say, reach out to current students or alumni to speak to them about that, right? Is this what it felt like in your learning team? Who made up this learning team? And I would say that super high GMAT piece of it, we do, unfortunately, in my opinion, the GMAT is, it keeps going higher, keeps the averages, but it is a piece, like you have this academic bucket, right? And so therefore it's your undergrad, institution, what you majored in, your GPA, they look into your transcripts, all the components, and then there's the test score, right? So you do want to be in the conversation. Wharton is a very academically rigorous school. So especially the quant piece of the GMAT, they are taking a look at it. I always said we would never want to set you up for failure by accepting you into our program and then having you come in and not be able to succeed, right? So that is, and that's what they're looking for. But they definitely, I'm sure if you see the range, right? So yes, but just because you have a 760 doesn't mean you can get in, and just because you have a 650 doesn't mean you can't. So, right, it's all very individualized, as I'm sure LBS is very similar in that respect.
Yeah, it is. I think that, the LBS has gotten a little more strict on the GMAT in the last several years. Still not quite as focused on the GMAT as I would say I see a lot of the US schools are, including my alma mater, Columbia. I can see them incredibly focused on the GMAT, much to my dismay. And I think that's just because my hypothesis is that in Europe, these standardized tests are not very common. And so you tend to see just a little bit of a lower average score in Europe than you do like in the US or some other parts of the world. And because of that, because of just the nature of how these schools evolved and a lot of the students coming from a lot of those European countries, it maybe just weighs down the average a little bit. I would personally love to see a day where nobody cares about the GMAT, but not just because I only got a 660. Okay, so we've got an entrepreneur here from Nepal. He graduated in 2020, but he started his startup in 2019 before he graduated. Will such work experience fit for the MBA at Wharton, do you think? He wants to apply this August.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's playing this August for the 2023
Yeah,
class.
that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I could have gotten that wrong, Ramaj, if I did.
Right. I mean, entrepreneurs, and I will say, I mean, right. If we go back to 2019 is really when you started the company. So it's more than 2 years since you graduated. It really depends, individually on what your company has done, right? Your growth, what have you worked on? What have you achieved? It's okay. Have you had setbacks? How have you overcome those, right? And speaking to all those, again, what skills have you acquired to date? What knowledge through your startup have you acquired? And then the clarity of why the MBA now is the right step for me. And I'm assuming maybe given your startup, or maybe you're going to go do something else. And then tying it, and this is going to go to our next slide about essays, tying in essay one, what do you, how's the Wharton MBA going to help you, achieve your goals is, and that's not the wording of the essay, but what they're looking for is to really understand the programming at Wharton. And again, what skills do you need to, if to build or to enhance in order, again, for your next step, and if that's to continue. But entrepreneurs, I mean, clearly Wharton is they are graduating and becoming great entrepreneurs, right? They can name a bunch of those like Word Marker, et cetera. But ultimately, again, if you've heard of Tangenhall, which is just opening, the Venture Lab, and really having these opportunities to build this skill set while you are at Wharton to really, support the future entrepreneurs, or if you've been an entrepreneur, right, to help you continue to build those skill sets and what you're struggling with. So that's a long answer, but you can't not apply because you're an entrepreneur. But I think it's the depth of your experience overall, say since, let's say, 2019. And again, if they feel, and this is again going back to the very beginning when Cassandra said, is giving them the understanding of, why are you doing it, and where have you gotten to date, in the sense of that you can again contribute that experience and perspective, and it will be meaningful within a classroom environment, within your learning team, etc.
Yeah, that's such great insight. I'm just going to take a couple more of these audience questions, and then we'll try to get through some of ours as well. Pujita, I just want to say that we're talking mostly about the MBA here, so I'm afraid we can't offer you a lot of insight on the CFA versus the Masters in Finance. But just going back, Michel, to our GMAT question that we had there, what is the average GMAT at Wharton? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't. Let's say it's I don't even want to guess because do you want to know why? Because I actually don't focus on it, to be honest with you. No, really, it's right. And I'd have to go to the website and look it up right now. And I have a general sense, right? It hasn't moved that much. And I'll tell you, with each of my clients, my first question is, okay, what did you get on the quant and what did you get on the verbal? Okay. That's so, right. I split it out immediately, like, yes. And first number would most likely need to be a 7, right? And if we can get over that 720, and anything over that, I think is a bonus, but also the quant piece, like, about 49, like for these top schools on the quant is, again, it's as we talked about, there's many people that are quite, accomplished and, top-notch candidates in different pieces. So how can you stand out? Well, this is an area, but ultimately, again, if you're below that, doesn't mean you're not going to get in. So, but that's
would you consider 49 then a competitive quant for Wharton?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
drove 760 with So we've got somebody here with a 760 with a 49 quant. So no, you're good.
Fantastic.
That's a great score.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. So Michel, how do we tackle these essays?
Yes. Okay.
So lots to say and not that many words.
Yeah. Okay. So exactly. So Wharton, 2 essays. They did not change the prompts this year, and pretty much going back, they've always asked the same thing. So essay 1, what are you going to get out of Wharton? Okay. That's what they're looking for, right? So it's a little bit of backstory, context. Their rewording last year is they want you to share, again, as we talked about, your goals, what has informed your goals, right? So giving that little bit of story, you have 500 words. So this is very concise. And then, talking about, okay, ultimately why an MBA, in order to achieve these goals you've laid out, specifically the Wharton MBA. Again, so you're going to want to go into specifics of the program. So this is an understanding of, if you want to mention the major, if you want to mention 1 or 2 classes, but again, not just mentioning the classes, and it's not a laundry list of classes. It's this class in particular, because this is what I look forward to learning and to gaining that's going to support me in going and getting this next role, etc. As well as, other classes, program offerings. If there's a specific professor maybe doing research within one space, you can dig into any of these different areas. But that's SA1. So what are you going to get from the Wharton MBA? SA2 is, what are you going to give and contribute? How are you going to contribute to the Wharton community? And this is big. I talked about this is what they're looking for, are individuals, your personality, what, experiences have you had and what diversity of thought experiences are you going to bring? So again, going back and telling a backstory, and you want to think strategically as well. You don't want to come off as one-dimensional. So, across your application. So it can't be professionally focused because your personality and what matters to you is quite important. You want to become up as well-rounded, right? So both engaged professionally, but also outside of work and whatever that looks like, right? There's no right answers, but that's what you're trying to get to know. So SA2 is, giving an experience and that's been meaningful to you. And they let you say educationally, professionally, right? They give you those opportunities. You can pick anything. And then from that experience, how would that contribute? And really, again, be specific in what area, if it's a club, if it's, so that's what, and you want to, again, make that connection to Wharton. And I always say that SA2 is, how are you going to enhance the experience of your classmates, given your background, your passion around this topic. So the essays, and again, that's 400 words as well, just so you know. So it's like, they're very tight and concise, but it's thinking again about, what's important to you, both professionally and maybe personally, and, and how your journey to date has shaped your, outlook and your passions to have them understand what that looks like. I'll stop there. So those are the two essays.
I really want to kind of pull the thread of something you've just said, which is around that second essay and about how, the applicant is going to enhance the experience of the other students. So much of what we spend time thinking about when we apply to business school is what we need from the school, right? How the program is going to change our lives or transform our careers or make, what we want to have happen. Now that's an important element of it. But equally important is, what do you have to give to the community? How is your study team, your class going to be different because you are in it, different and better? And I think that's just I want to pause on that point and really emphasize it. Yeah. Now we've got another couple of questions here from the audience about Wharton. So let's dive in here. What would you say, how good would Wharton be? And I'll answer the same thing for LBS, with someone for with luxury experience, 7 years of luxury retail background, looking to move, go global in some way in the same sector.
Oh, so Wharton actually has a wonderful, as your alma mater, CBS as well, the luxury and goods space. And again, and I think that, again, that's really, for me, I'm always like, that's really interesting. As your coach, I'd be like, tell me more, because again, it just goes to what we were just saying. Like, I always say, what seat are you filling? So you're filling this is my background, right? In fashion and in this industry. And what are you looking to achieve? Where are you looking to go next? Do you need more global awareness and Wharton's programs will expose you to this X, Y, and Z, right? I mean, so that's how you should, should be your take and how you look at it. And again, how you can best tell your story. So again, Wharton is, what are you getting? And then what are you giving, right? So have that understanding, and specifically, again, the Wharton school. And so, like I said, Wharton has the club. It has a specific, it has classes. I know it has a lot going on within that space. So by doing your research, I think, and understanding the value and how the Wharton MBA will benefit you in your specific career and your career going forward. And if you can articulate that's what they're looking for, right? That goes back to that clarity of purpose and understanding, and like, wow, like she or he is really going to come in and take advantage of these resources of this class. And I'll go back to the one thing with Wharton, and I'll pass it to Cassandra, is they are looking for people to get involved. And I think I've said this before, but it's true. When I was an undergrad, when I worked there, it's the students are the drivers. You all are making things happen, which is why it's so amazing, right? How you collaborate, how you put on, different conferences, etc. It's student run. So think about, again, that's what are you going to be driving into and running? What are you going to, hit the ground running about because you're so passionate and interested and driven about it, that topic, let's say.
Yeah. And I want to kind of pick up on the other element of the question, which was, for this person was they wanted, by next level, they meant, they want to go global. So I would kind of say, look, the globe is big. What part of the world do you want to work in? Luxury was a sector that I considered as well when I first started business school. And, Columbia I was in the J term, it's 50% international. The J term, I think it's the most international program in the United States. The vast majority of offers in luxury or any other sector were in the United States. So if going global to you is, work in luxury in the United States, I'm sure Wharton is a great fit for that. If you're looking to work in luxury in Europe, I would say, maybe have a closer eye on LBS. It's closer, and it has, again, great luxury program, great luxury connections to a lot of the companies, particularly in France or in Italy, et cetera. But those are, both global locations, and depends on what you want your focus to be. Yeah. So about these recommendations, Michelle.
Yeah.
What are they looking for?
They are looking for, again, I think I mentioned before, but individuals, and hopefully a direct manager supervisor that sees your day in and day out, activities, how you interact with other people, how you are performing at your job, and can really add that perspective. And more specifically, not just give some great adjectives, but give them specific examples and anecdotes to show how you have achieved something, how you maybe worked through a problem, how you were maybe pulled into a project last minute and how you performed. Like, you see what I'm saying? So it's really to, have them understand what you've done and how you've done it. So you need to think, who are the best people to speak to those, to look for how have I performed, how do I compare my peer group. Wharton is different. So I will just mention, usually the second question for a lot of the US business schools is a piece of constructive feedback as well. So you can also review what are the questions that are being asked. Wharton really, they have changed their questions for the recommenders, but they're looking for recommenders, again, that can really speak to how will you find success in the classroom? Again, how will you contribute? What are you bringing? And then also find success in your future career. So again, your ambition, your leadership potential, right? What have you shown signs that you can step up and shown these leadership qualities? So again, someone that really, again, I say also both knows you professionally and maybe personally as well, to also speak to your personality and those interpersonal skills. And so they're not looking, as I'm sure you've heard or you read, I'm sure Cassandra will say, not the title of your recommender. It is the relationship, but a direct supervisor. So I'm not looking for the skip, two above you because they are the title looks a lot better. It's very evident when the recommender doesn't know you that well. And it's just kind of like high level, this person is great, but not the nitty gritty of how you approach a problem. How do you, problem solve and think, or, analytical thinking, etc.
One of the nuances, I think, for LBS, and I'm sure there's a grain of truth of this for all schools, but something that's a particular consideration for LBS is the culture, the leadership culture is really infused with more humility, much more an obvious layer of humility that you might not see as evidently not just in US programs, but just in the US. And I think I can say that as an American, who lives in the UK now. And so getting that in your essays and your application, getting that balance right between, showing your leadership experience, but also showing that you are humble and that you're not arrogant and that you're going to fit culturally in the schools is a really important thing. Your recommendations can be a lot more direct and enthusiastic about your achievements. And if you are a top performer, top 5%, best person they've ever seen in the role, et cetera, they can say that directly without having to worry about does that come off as too arrogant, et cetera? And so I would really just encourage you to, when you're coaching your recommenders, to think about those examples that do set you apart from your peers, and really embrace that and have them say that directly. Question here, not something I've ever thought about. Do in-center and online GMAT test takers go through a different admissions process? I mean, no, right, Michelle?
I do not believe so. No.
A question as well about the overlap between the LBS, MIM, and MBA applications. There is a ton of overlap. It's virtually the identical application, but they'll be looking for subtly different things. And again, we're talking mostly about the MBA here, but have a look at that, and I'm sure that there'll be another event in the future we could talk about MIM, or indeed sign up for the free consultation. We could talk about MIM. So, any final tips? And then before we log off, we will also get to some final questions. But before we get to those final questions, Michelle, just any final tips on Wharton?
Yeah, I mean, so like, I think I would say I'm always a big believer of planning ahead, again, which I feel like all of you are, in the sense of doing your research and the outreach, the studying, the GMAT, GRE, taking it, usually you take it more than once, getting that out of the way, and really jumping in with a full box of knowledge of, again, then how I'm going to approach and tell my story for this school, if that makes sense. Because I think so going with that is taking that step back and reflecting on what you have done and why you have made the choices you've made professionally and personally, but also even more so what you've learned from them, right? And if you've had setbacks and what you learned from them, if that makes sense, right? So trying to figure out what makes you you, right? Because I think for Wharton, and I talk about, is therefore you can really speak to in both of the essays, well, I understand in the value or, professionally what I've learned and what I know to this point. And that could be just industry knowledge, where your specific industry is moving towards, if it's fashion, whatever, right? Sustainability, etc. And then the understanding of, I understand the value of the MBA and how the Wharton MBA will benefit me. Again, because you talk to, alumni, you've talked to current students, go to a club that you're interested in. They will tell you the name of the president and reach out to them. They also have all the, we used to call them graduate assistants. I always forget they've renamed them, but they're all listed. They're part of the admissions team. All of their backgrounds are listed. So again, someone that aligns with what you're doing or want to do, reach out to them and their source of knowledge. So being knowledgeable, as you approach and to convey your interest in Wharton. But, and then secondly is, really understanding, I lost my train of thought, so I apologize, but is the professional and the personal. So I think the self-awareness and the planning ahead to really then, it's your best story. And again, that we talked about is that's really what the hook is on the other end when the reader is reading your entire application. And one thing I'll throw in, because Cassandra mentioned it, and it's totally true because I've done LBS as well. Unfortunately, the Wharton application is quite bare minimum. So you don't have these open-ended questions, which is, I still feel like it is unfortunate to the candidate. So therefore that's why I put so much emphasis, unfortunately still, but on these two essays, and you can get it done in the 500 and 400 words, and then recommenders, because they're data forms. The application is just very, generic. And then the last component would be the resume, which adds a lot of value. So taking the time to really, and this isn't a professional resume, and there's a lot of great, and we have our resume specialist, Jody Keating, and I know she has articles out there, is the business school resume and how to approach that. And again, really highlight, your role and how, skills that you've developed, leadership, community engagement, that piece of a resume is a bit different than a professional resume. So those are kind of the components, I'll say, of Wharton. And knowing coming out of this, we're still in COVID, but I think Wharton has opened its campus. It is not required to, visit, but they have opened it. All the schools out right now, they weren't doing class visits. But again, if as much as you can do a webinar, or if they're starting to travel and just starting to really discuss with people to, again, where's your fit I talk about this big Wharton program. And there's a lot of interdisciplinary opportunities at Wharton, at the other graduate schools. And is that something you'd want to take, part of is thinking about all those opportunities. And lastly, because I got the banker question, which I totally get, they're really looking for the non-traditional. And if that's something that you fit in that box, don't be dissuaded. Don't think, well, it's not a good fit. Do your research and see if it is a good fit because of what they are offering with the McNulty Leadership Program, with, if you want to study finance, if you want to go into analytics, healthcare is a hot topic, and the healthcare management program is by far one of the top programs, right? So good luck, and we'll get to some of your questions, and I'll pass it off to Cassandra to kind of finish up with final thoughts and tips on LBS.
Well, let me ask some of these. I want to make sure.
Okay,
we only have 6 minutes left. I want to get through as many of these as possible, and if we have time, I'll close with some LBS final tips. So somebody who's a co-founder of a business but co-founded it at university is graduating this year and wants to apply for next year, as in wants to apply in September for the 2023 class. Hey, is that wise, or should they get some more experience even though they've been running a startup through undergrad?
I graduate next year. Wait, Cassandra, do you think they're graduating next year from undergrad?
Maybe.
Okay, so I'll do my plug for the deferred MBA programs, because I'm kind of the point person, I think, at Fortuna for the deferred MBA, and I've worked with many clients now the last couple of years. So it sounds like you might fall into this bucket. I just missed your name, Kushi, and I apologize if I mispronounced it. If you are currently an undergrad in your senior year, or if you're a rising senior, right, you'll be going into your senior year, or you continued into a master's program directly from undergrad, you would also qualify. Most of the top US M7 business schools are offering deferred MBA opportunities. So you apply your senior year. Most of the deadlines are in April. And then what you do is, if you are accepted, you can defer. Every school's a little bit different, but I'll say 2 to 4 years after graduation. So I'm wondering if that's something that you might fall into that bucket. If you're thinking of you're graduating and then let's say a year later, or ultimately you graduate right in like May and you want to apply this up, I will say you're quite young. And I worry that you just don't have enough of that, even though you started a company, that the experience to really compete, to be honest, your candidacy just won't be quite as strong. Because again, what's your value add? If you're coming into this class, what knowledge and experience are you bringing? And it just might be a little bit limited because of your young age. So I'm wondering, again, if you are applying in 2023, you would fit perfectly to apply for the deferred MBA program, but it's hard given your question. But those are kind of the two. I would say if you're 1 year out of school, it's low probability. I'm sure, Cassandra, right? I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. You never know. But low probability, and obviously it kind of depends as well on the startup that you're working on, and how big you got, and so there's so many unknowns. But I also think I want to kind of throw that question back and say less about like, will the schools accept you, and more about, is this the right time for you to do your MBA? So I tend to think that the right time to do an MBA is when you're on this kind of exponential growth and learning curve in your career, and you start to feel that flatten just a little bit. That's the right time, so that you capture that, that you can get on that exponential growth again. If you've been running a successful startup and you've got more growth to do, then it could be potentially that 2 to 3 years is actually a better time for you as well. Another question here we have on low GPA. So I'll take that one if you'd like, Michelle. And
sure.
Schools are not looking at one thing in your profile, any one thing. They're looking at how it comes together and how that feeds into a broader area. So your GMAT or GRE plus your past academic experience, whether that be undergraduate GPA, any postgraduate work you've done, any kind of, maybe you take an HBS core or some other kind of, math class, that all kind of goes into a bucket of your intellectual, your academic capacity. How well do they think you can perform academically on the program? Are you going to succeed in the classroom? the only predictor they have of your future potential for success is your past success. So do low undergrad grades matter? Absolutely. If you have low undergrad grades but a 780 GMAT, are they gonna, be that concerned about your low undergrad grades? Probably not. But if you have low undergrad grades and a below average GMAT, it's going to be hard to make that case that you can really succeed in a rigorous academic environment. So I would just encourage you to think about it less about individual thing and more about what evidence do you have of your potential for academic success. Anything to add on that, Michelle, for Wharton specifically?
No, I absolutely agree. It's like this bucket. So 100%. And I'll say another way just to add on actually would just be if you did have the lower undergraduate GPA, I've had many clients take, right, the additional math course or like you said, the HBS core to, again, build out I'm preparing for business school, right? To show them, I want to make sure I'm successful, right? That's right. And also, and you're aware of that and to counterbalance that. But the other way is also the test score and your performance. So that's how you should look at it. And that's how they approach it. Oh, and because it's a holistic approach. It really is. I know they say it, but it's true. I've been in that seat. It's not the one thing, like Cassandra said. It's not one thing that's going to take you out. It's not one thing that's going to get you in. They're looking at all the components.
Yeah. And then I'll take one final question, which I think also feeds into my final tip. And this question is around international exposure and how much it adds value to an application. Now, Michelle, you mentioned you worked with applicants to LBS as well, and I've obviously worked with applicants to Wharton as well. And here's my take on it. I'd be interested, Michelle, if you disagree. So maybe this can be a little bit of a debate.
Okay.
I think that the U.S. programs, Wharton included, kind of like international experience. They kind of like it, but they don't really love it. And I have often said I'm not convinced that the people working in admissions for the US programs, Wharton included, really understand how character building it is to move outside your home country, not know anybody, have to get an apartment, have to get a phone, have to make new friends. I mean, it is one of the hardest, most character building experiences you can have. And I'm not sure they really get it. LBS, I can tell you, gets it. They really want you to have that international experience. It's part of the DNA. They highly value it, and they highly value what it could bring to the classroom. So that would be my kind of take on the difference. Anything to add there, Michelle?
No, I would agree. I mean, definitely I agree with LBS and their interest in what has been your global exposure, right? Wharton isn't having a specific question. Although I think we do it in two ways. One way, if you really haven't had a lot, I know, again, when I work with Jody with the resume, we try to say, is there any global flavor in the sense of, is there anything? Because that is one of our, bullet points that we are trying to hit for you. Exactly. Right. And if you don't, you don't. If you do, I look at it because I still think it's because I understand that, like you said, the character building aspect. Again, how's this going to help you stand out? How can this add value? So use it as this key point of setting yourself apart. So use it to your advantage. But I would agree that I don't think the U.S. business schools, they could say it, and so when they do see it, I think it has to really be like a wow factor, right? But if you don't, doesn't mean you can't get in. That's for sure, right? So it's not a requirement. Because I totally agree with how you set that out.
Well, this has been so much fun, Michelle. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And thank you everybody who attended. I know we didn't get to all of the questions, and particularly if you want to ask questions about your profile and what your chances are, I just want to encourage you, sign up for that 30-minute free session. It's no obligation. We're not going to hard sell you. We love doing this. And so, do feel free to do that if you want to ask more in-depth questions about yourself. Thank you so much to GMAT Club for inviting us. And this has just been great.
Thank you so much. It's been so wonderful. Thank you, Cassandra and GMAT Club. I wish you all the best of luck, and enjoy the process. It's definitely a long process, and reach out, like she said, if you have specific questions, and everyone have a wonderful day wherever you are.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.